It's just 15 people, Emrin said, swirling her wine glass like she was already bored with the conversation. She didn't even glance at me, just kept flipping through the catering brochure she'd brought, pausing occasionally to highlight something. And of course you'll host. The words dropped like crumbs on a clean floor. Expected, thoughtless, familiar. I didn't respond. Not when she slid the menu toward me with prices circled and items crossed out in red pen. Not when she muttered something about her mother's nut allergy like that too would be my responsibility to manage. And not even when she leaned back with a practiced sigh and added, "My brother's kids hate hotels, so we'll need the guest rooms." I took a long sip of water, cool, quiet, measured, and placed the glass back on its coaster. Then I smiled. Perfect. I'm going on a trip. You can handle it. Emrin froze, her fingers still curled around the stem of her glass, her mouth half open, as if I'd mispronounced a word in a language she thought I understood. "I'm sorry." What she said finally, her voice smaller now. Not weak, just unsure. She wasn't used to not being agreed with. "I'll be gone December 22nd through New Year's Day," I said evenly. "So you and your 15 guests can do what you like." The silence that followed was thick. Not angry, not hurt. Just stunned, like someone had dropped a tray in a quiet room. I stood, gently pushed in my chair, and began clearing the side plates. She didn't offer to help. She never did, but now she didn't even speak. Behind me, I could feel her watching, trying to make sense of it, waiting for the punchline, the apology, the softening that always came. But I didn't turn around. I rinsed the dishes and dried my hands on the towel I kept for show. The difference wasn't just in what I said, it was in the fact that I meant it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. I used to love Christmas. Back when Emrin would call 2 weeks in advance, soft-voiced, almost shy. "Mama Ernesta, would it be all right if we brought dessert? Maybe stayed a night or two?" Back then, Nolan still offered to help unload the car, even if he grumbled while doing it. He'd kiss my cheek and say, "Smells like Christmas in here, Mom," before disappearing into the den to fix the fire or play with the kids. Those holidays weren't perfect, but they felt earned, shared. Then slowly, something shifted. The invitations turned into expectations. The "would you mind" turned into "you'll need to." The help stopped arriving, but the guests doubled. The compliments stayed public, and the work stayed mine. Last year, I roasted 2 meats, prepped 6 sides, made 3 desserts, because Emrin didn't want to stress bake while managing her online orders. I babysat while they did last-minute shopping. I cleaned up while they drank spiced cider. And afterward, they posted a glossy photo, all smiles, matching flannel the caption, "Family time at Mom's." Not a single mention of the woman behind the camera, behind the oven, behind the effort. I didn't say anything, just smiled when they hugged me goodbye, nodding like the good mother I was supposed to be. This year, the group text came in mid-November. 15 people for Christmas. Thanks in advance, Ernesta. You're the best, no question mark. No pause to ask if I was well or tired or interested. They assumed I'd host because I always did. And when someone does the work quietly enough, long enough, people stop seeing it as effort. They just call it tradition. I didn't respond. I just closed the message, muted the thread, and opened a new browser tab. Flights, cabins, car rentals. I didn't have a destination yet, but I had made up my mind. And once I started tallying everything I'd done for them over the years, I couldn't stop. They forget I can count too. Maybe not in spreadsheets or fancy budgeting apps like Emrin uses, but in memory. Quiet, precise memory. 4,800. That's what I loaned them when their HVAC broke last spring. No contract, no interest, no deadline. Just a handwritten check and a soft, "take your time, $1, $200. The cash I slipped into Nolan's coat pocket the week Emryn opened her bakery just to help with flour and rent. I never got it back and I never asked. And then there's the babysitting. Dozens of hours easily. Watching two tired, teething toddlers while they recharged at wine tastings and friends' cabins. I fed, bathed, rocked, sang. While they posted boomerangs of sunsets and captioned it, Self-Care Weekend. They remember none of it because I never made them. I never said, you owe me, and that's where I went wrong. Because last week, while discussing plans for this year's Christmas menu, Emryn looked up from her phone and said, don't go overboard on food this year. Our budget's tight. Our budget. As if I were part of that equation. As if I hadn't covered the turkey, the ham, the pies every single year. That sentence didn't bruise me. It clarified things. They want my house, my table, my labor, my warmth, but not me, not my presence, not my comfort, not even my opinion. Just what I can provide quietly and without thanks. That night, I made a decision. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling. Just me at my laptop with a cup of coffee and a blank search bar. Quiet winter cabins. Arizona. A few clicks. One reservation. December 22nd to January 1st. No guests. No list. Just 10 days of air that isn't filled with expectation. I closed the laptop, finished my coffee, and folded the receipt into a drawer. It was the first thing I'd bought for myself in years that didn't require justification. And I already knew it wouldn't be the last. I didn't leave in secret. I just didn't offer a speech. I printed their group message, the one with the assumption, tucked neatly between emojis and exclamation marks. 15 people for Christmas. Thanks in advance, Ernesta. You're the best. I folded it once and slipped it into a plain white card. No frills, no glitter. Just space for truth. On the back, in steady handwriting, I wrote, this home will be unoccupied from Deck 22 to John 1. Wishing you warmth, food, and joyful memories wherever you choose to gather. Ernesta. No sarcasm, no guilt. Just facts. I taped it to the side of the mailbox at the edge of the driveway facing the street. Just high enough that Emryn couldn't claim she missed it. Just low enough that Nolan would have to bend, slightly stoop a little to read. I locked every door. Unplugged the coffee maker. Set the thermostat to away mode. Then I walked through the house one last time, not out of nostalgia, but clarity. No garland on the banister this year. No pine-scented candles. No folding chairs brought up from the basement. No menu planning. No extra linens laid out. The dining table was bare. The oven cold. I slid my suitcase into the trunk, and with one last glance toward the house that had hosted dozens of people, many of whom never thought to say thank you, I got in the car. The porch light stayed off. Let them fumble for the gate code. Let them stand outside wondering why the lights didn't flick on. I turned the dial to a station that played classic soul, cracked the window an inch, and drove. Through the first few turns of my quiet neighborhood, past lawns with blow-up Santas and blinking reindeer, out toward open road and air that didn't smell like obligation. They could say whatever they wanted later, invent any story they needed. But I knew the truth, and it was printed, taped, and waiting for them at the mailbox. They didn't think I meant it. Not really. Not until they pulled up in their overpacked SUV kids, half asleep trunk full of store-bought trays and overnight bags. Not until they saw the porch light off. The windows dark. The front gate locked. That's when the messages started. Nolan's name lit up my screen first. Mom, where are you? Are you okay? I imagined him standing there, frowning at his phone, already irritated by the drive, trying to keep the kids from fighting in the back seat, while Emryn stood beside him with arms folded. Then her messages came. Gates locked. We're here with food and kids. What's going on? Did you forget we were coming? Check your phone. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to explain. Then the tone shifted. Faster. Sharper. This isn't funny. You're making a scene. This is selfish. Selfish. That word again. After 3 decades of saying yes to everything, yes to cooking, yes to watching the kids, yes to staying late cleaning up after everyone left, swallowing my words so peace could sit at the table, they called this selfish. I picked up the phone, read the thread once, then placed it face down in the drawer of the nightstand. Outside the cabin, pine trees stretched toward a sky that was starting to burn orange with late afternoon sun. Somewhere nearby, a bird whistled. Something small scurried through leaves. The world didn't care that I'd said no. It didn't call me selfish. It didn't expect me to serve. It just let me be. I sat by the window, my hands wrapped around a warm mug, and let the silence settle deep into my bones. Back home, maybe they were pacing, maybe calling neighbors, maybe already rewriting the story so they could be the ones left out, wronged, confused. But the card was still taped to the mailbox. Clear, calm, final. They didn't get to say I hadn't told them. They just didn't want to believe I finally meant it. I didn't know where they ended up until Leona called. She lives across the street, the kind who always notices when the trash bins aren't out, or when the porch light hasn't been turned on in days. They're over at Emran's brother's place, she said. Whole crew? Must have been a last-minute shift. I could hear the amusement in her voice, the kind you have to soften when talking to someone you think might be hurt. But I wasn't hurt. Not even curious, really. Still, I asked, "How do you know one of the kids left their jacket on my lawn?" she said. I walked it over and, well, I saw enough. I pictured it easily. Tight kitchen. One of those galley layouts where you can't open the fridge and the oven at the same time. Too many voices trying to take charge. Not enough chairs. Unfamiliar stove with unreliable heat. Leona said Emran had tried to roast the turkey herself. Looked good on the outside, but raw as a January lake inside. They ended up slicing around the center and calling it rustic. 3 adults slept on an air mattress that hissed itself flat by midnight. Someone forgot the ice. Another brought cold takeout no one touched. They argued over serving spoons, but not a single person mentioned me. Not out loud, not truthfully. They told people I was sick, that I'd gotten overwhelmed, that I needed rest. As if rest was something they'd ever allowed me to have before. They didn't say I was fine. Didn't say I had booked a trip months ago. Didn't say I'd left a card in plain sight with every detail spelled out. No, they rewrote it. Because the truth that I chose not to host, not to give, not to stretch myself thin for another year was too inconvenient, too disruptive to their image of me. So they erased me from the story. But even without my name in the credits, they still couldn't make the day work. And Leona said, honestly, it didn't feel like Christmas at all. The Arizona air was dry and still, like the world had paused just enough to let me breathe for once. The cabin was small, 2 rooms, a porch, and a heater that clicked every hour, but it was enough. More than enough. 1 chair that didn't creak. A bed that didn't carry anyone's weight but mine. A window that framed the morning like a painting. I made do with instant coffee, a mug from the welcome basket, and a pine-scented blanket I'd picked up at the gas station on the drive-in. It smelled like nostalgia and something new all at once. On Christmas morning, I walked down to the diner just off the road. The waitress barely looked up when I ordered. Just slid a paper plate across the counter with 1 warm cinnamon roll still sticky and soft. I sat by the window and watched a hawk ride the wind above the red cliffs. Not circling, just drifting. No screaming children. No pile of dishes. No questions about allergies, preferences, or kitchen timers. I didn't miss the sound of chairs scraping the floor, or the tension behind Emran's perfect hostess smile, or the moment when Nolan would glance at his phone during grace. I didn't miss anything. That afternoon, my phone buzzed once. Just once. Nolan. You really left us hanging. That's not like you. I stared at the screen for a long time. He was right. It wasn't like me. Not the mother they were used to. Not the woman who stayed back to refill plates and swallow her own exhaustion. But maybe that woman had been performing a role for far too long. I didn't call back. Didn't reply. I just turned the phone over and let the sun warm my hands instead. That night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in that gas station blanket, the stars brighter than I'd seen in years. I hadn't planned a new tradition. I hadn't sought revenge. I had simply chosen quiet and found that it had been waiting for me all along. 2 weeks later, the phone rang again. Nolan. I let it ring twice before answering. I wasn't avoiding him, I just wasn't rushing anymore. His voice came warm at first. Rehearsed. The kids missed you, you know. I almost let that get to me. Almost. But then he added lightly, with that half laugh he uses when he's about to deflect blame. Next time, just let us know earlier, so we can plan around your mood. My mood? As if what I did, booking a trip, stepping back, saying no, wasn't a choice, but a flare-up, a hiccup, a lapse in emotional hygiene, not a boundary, not a line drawn in long-ignored sand, just something they had to manage. I didn't respond right away. I could hear him filling the silence on the other end, clanking dishes, a kid calling in the background. Life, moving on. I mean, you could have just said you needed space. I had. In my own way. The card on the mailbox. The locked gate. The silence which had spoken louder than any list of grievances could. But what he wanted was something else. He didn't want understanding. He wanted comfort. He wanted me to feel bad enough to make it easier next time. I stayed quiet. Not cold, not angry, just quiet. Because I'd spent too many years mistaking guilt for love. Too many holidays performing warmth so others wouldn't have to create their own. Let them miss me. Let them plan better. Let them wonder why it felt different this year. I didn't need to explain that what they called mood was really me finally reclaiming my time. I'm glad the kids are well, I said simply. I hope they had a good Christmas. I could hear him trying to steer the call back toward ease, but I was already somewhere else. Beyond the script. Beyond the guilt. We hung up soon after, and I placed the phone on the windowsill, where the late sun caught the edge of the screen. I didn't feel triumphant. Just clear. And clarity, it turned out, was stronger than apology. In January, I cleared the garage. Not in a flurry, not in a fit of anger. Just one box at a time. I opened each bin, sifted through tinsel-chipped ornaments and broken strands of lights that hadn't worked in years. I kept the wooden angel Nolan made in 2nd grade. Everything else gone. The folding tables donated. They'd only ever come out for their parties, their guests, their comfort. The extra linens packed and dropped off at a shelter on a quiet Tuesday morning. The bins of holiday decor gave them to a church rummage sale. I didn't post about it, didn't tell anyone, because it wasn't for them. It was for space, for air, for the quiet hum of a garage that didn't carry the weight of expectations. I wasn't angry, just done. Done waiting to be appreciated after the fact. Done preserving things for people who only saw the value when I refused to use them. Done folding napkins into fans and pretending that counted as love. Weeks passed. Life moved on. Then one afternoon, while scrolling mindlessly through my phone, I saw it. A photo on Emran's social feed, her standing alone in their newly painted kitchen arms, crossed no smile. The caption read, "This year taught me not to rely on anyone." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I smiled. Because I'd learned the same thing. And for once, I didn't feel the need to correct her version. Let her keep her story. She hadn't noticed that I hadn't invited them to Easter. Hadn't reminded them about birthdays. Hadn't followed up on Nolan's vague offer to come by sometime. They were too busy adjusting to their new dynamic, to the absence they didn't expect to last. But I wasn't waiting. I was planting herbs on the windowsill, repainting the guest room, making morning coffee in silence. Not out of spite, out of clarity. I had been reliable for so long they mistook it for obligation. Now they'd have to learn the difference. Easter came and went. I baked a small pie for myself, set the table with one plate, and ate in silence. Not the lonely kind. The kind that comes after the noise has faded and you realize how little of it was yours to begin with. Then Mother's Day. No call, no card, just a photo on social media. Nolan and Emran smiling at a rocky coastline in Maine, windswept and carefree. The caption read, "Much-needed family reset." I didn't feel forgotten. I felt free. By late summer, I joined a hiking group that met every Saturday morning. Real people, real laughter. No group texts with fake gratitude. We didn't talk about casseroles or complaints. We talked about elevation gains, sore knees, good socks. In September, I booked another cabin. This one farther north near a lake. Wood-burning stove, no Wi-Fi. I marked it on my calendar in Redmine. Then, November rolled in. One crisp morning, Nolan texted, "You're still coming for Christmas, right? No greeting. No question mark at the beginning. Just the assumption wrapped in a soft expectation like always." I read it once. Then again. And I typed simply, "No, but I hope it goes well." No explanation, no apology. There was nothing to explain and even less to regret. I didn't leave to punish them. I left because I finally realized they never really noticed me staying. I was the meal, the planning, the background music and the clean towels. But not the guest, not the heart. And once you see that clearly, you don't go back to pretending. So I didn't. This Christmas, I'll be in a cabin again. With my coffee, my blanket, a library book with someone else's scribbles in the margins. And maybe they'll post another picture. Maybe they'll say it wasn't the same this year. But I won't be watching. Because when you stop performing, you start living. And I have a lot of living left.